You've been lied to. Society keeps repeating the same script, that a man who lives alone, that his solitude is failure. But let me call this out clearly. What if the opposite is true? What if solitude is not a weakness to hide, but the hidden weapon no one told you about? Picture this. Life is like an overcrowded marketplace. Most people spend their energy shouting for attention, chasing bargains, fighting for scraps of validation. But the man who dares to step outside that market, who chooses his own quiet road, discovers something no crowd can give him: clarity, freedom, mastery. It's the reversal most people will never understand. The less you depend on others for your worth, the more powerful you become. In this video, I'll reveal 7 undeniable truths about men who walk alone. Truths that cut through the noise and show you a life most people never even imagine. And let me make a promise, when we reach the 5th truth, I'll share a rare insight, a hidden gift from research and history itself. Something so unique that if you grasp it, it could change the way you think about your own energy forever. Most channels won't dare to say it out loud. I will, so stay with me. This isn't about glorifying loneliness or rejecting love. It's about uncovering the deeper strength that only solitude can forge. The kind of strength that makes a man unshakable. Now let me ask you, are you ready to step out of the marketplace, into the silence, and discover what men who thrive alone already know? Fact 1. Mastery through self-reliance. Comfort can make you fragile. Strength begins the day you stop outsourcing your life. Most people lean on someone, parents to remind them, a partner to steady them, a friend group to fill the empty weekends. The man who lives alone learns another rhythm. When the noise fades, you become responsible for the beat. Self-reliance isn't glamorous at first. I remember the first months after my divorce, stepping into an apartment that felt more like a battlefield than a home. Every day I wrestled with the smallest things: how to fry an egg without burning it, how to make a messy room livable, how to scrub a toilet without cursing under my breath, how to press a wrinkled shirt so I didn't look defeated before I even left the house. It sounds trivial now, but back then it was exhausting. Just as stressful as competing in the marketplace. But something shifted. After weeks of trial and error, those chores became less like punishment and more like quiet victories. I realized I wasn't just cleaning a floor or cooking a meal. I was proving to myself that I could survive. And after a few months, it felt like I had graduated from a survival course in the wild. The house didn't change, but I did. I became someone I could rely on. Think of a lighthouse keeper on a quiet coast. No audience, no compliments, just cycles of inspection, small adjustments, and steady light through bad weather. That's self-reliance. You learn the discipline of tiny, unfancy moves, planning your week on Sunday, setting boundaries with relatives who overreach, saying a clean no to invitations that drain you, repairing your mood without using another person as a crutch. Over time, that quiet maintenance becomes strength other people can feel when they meet you. There's a tree in an open field with no forest to shield it. Every wind reaches it first. Because of that, its roots go deeper than anyone sees. Living alone does the same thing to your character. You stop waiting for someone to set the tone. You become the one who sets it. You stop bargaining with your standards. You start honoring them when no one is watching. Dependence feels soft now and brittle later. Independence feels hard now and unbreakable later. People think support means never facing life solo. The deeper truth: real support begins when you can stabilize yourself. Then every relationship you choose is from abundance, not need. At first, you think discipline will earn applause. It won't. Family may whisper you're missing out. An ex might flaunt photos to trigger comparison. Colleagues may ask why you work late instead of chasing weekends. But then you stop defending. You stop explaining. You just keep building. Quiet, steady, unshaken. And without a word, people feel it. A weight in your presence. Not louder, not flashier, just steadier. Like a candle in a storm. You don't fight the wind, you outlast it. I once thought I'd become the stereotype. A lonely, careless man unraveling on his own. But the opposite happened. I grew sharper, more disciplined, even more attractive in the eyes of women who noticed the steadiness I had built. That was the unexpected reward of living alone. The skills I gained became the very traits that redefined me. And you, what about you? If solitude knocked on your door, what strengths would it uncover in you? Fact 2. Solitude becomes strength. Have you ever noticed how some people cannot sit in silence for even 5 minutes? The moment the room grows quiet, they reach for noise. Music, a screen, another conversation, anything to avoid the echo of their own mind. Yet here lies the hidden angle, what most people treat as emptiness. The man who lives alone discovers as his most powerful training ground. My elderly neighbor once told me, after his children left for college, he too became a man living alone. He said, "The first taste of solitude felt heavy. Evenings stretched endlessly. The silence pressed in." He admitted he never expected that after half a lifetime of trials, what unsettled him most was not hardship, but solitude. Tempted to drown it out with TV or calls, he chose instead to sit with the silence. Night after night, he let it remain. And slowly, something unexpected happened. The silence stopped being an enemy. It turned into a teacher. And as he sat with it, he found himself growing clearer, almost enlightened. Lessons he had stumbled over in his younger years suddenly revealed themselves. Truths hidden beneath the surface of life became visible. Why certain relationships had failed. Why old ambitions had blinded him. Why peace had always felt out of reach. The silence that once felt like punishment became the classroom where wisdom finally arrived. Think of solitude like a weight room for the mind. At first, the bar feels unbearable. You shake, you want to quit, but each repetition builds capacity. History proves this. Charles Darwin spent long, isolated years studying quietly, walking alone, filling notebooks that later reshaped our understanding of life itself. Albert Einstein, too, often wandered in silence with his violin or strolled alone. And it was in those private moments that insights about the universe struck him. They weren't avoiding people. They were mining the gold that only solitude reveals. And remember this, stay with me until the fifth truth, because I'll reveal a rare insight about men who live alone that most people never hear. A secret that could change how you see your own energy forever. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's leverage. It forces you to stop outsourcing your identity. You learn to enjoy your own company, to wrestle with your own flaws, to become comfortable in a room with just your mind. Most people fear this, which is why they chase relationships or distractions they don't even want. But the man who embraces solitude is no longer running. He is confronting. And confrontation with the self is where true resilience is born. I once caught myself on a Saturday night, no plans, no calls. In the past, I would have panicked, but instead, I cooked a simple meal, then sat by the window with nothing but the night air. At first, it felt empty, but slowly ideas started to surface, memories, insights, even plans I had ignored. The silence itself became fertile. That night, I realized solitude wasn't robbing me. It was sharpening me. If this truth is striking something inside you, Don't just keep it to yourself. Drop a comment below. Share what solitude has taught you so other men realize they're not alone on this path. So let me ask you, if you stripped away every distraction for just 1 week, no endless scrolling, no constant chatter, what truths about yourself might finally rise to the surface? Fact 3, emotional control. Ever tried to argue with your laptop when it freezes? I have. And the funny part is, the screen never argues back. It just sits there, blank, while you look like the crazy one. That's what losing emotional control feels like. The world stays the same, only you end up drained. Most men, especially in relationships, lean heavily on a partner to stabilize their storms, someone to reassure them, absorb the frustration, or validate their side of the story. But the man who lives alone doesn't lean on that kind of constant buffer. Yes, he still has friends, family, colleagues, but at the end of the day, when the door closes, it's him and his own emotions. At first, this feels cruel. Then it becomes the very reason he grows calmer, sharper, and harder to shake. I remember a phase at work, years after my divorce, when deadlines piled up and small setbacks felt like betrayals. Back then, my habit was to vent, calling friends, leaning on a partner, anyone who would listen. But living alone shifted the pattern. When the evening came, there was no late-night call to lean on, no soft voice to smooth over my frustration. It was just me, walking the floor of my living room, deciding whether to fuel the fire or let it fade. That's when I began to see the truth. Emotions are like waves. You don't need to block them. You only need to stop drowning in them. Think of it like driving in the rain. Most people slam the brakes when they panic, spinning out of control. But if you hold the wheel steady, adjust slowly, the car stays on course. Emotional control is the same. Living alone trains you to steer instead of slam, to notice the rise of anger, the flicker of envy, the weight of sadness, and then decide consciously how to move through it. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The man in solitude doesn't just read those words, he lives them. Every time disappointment knocks, he has to decide, collapse or compose. And each time he chooses composure, he forges an invisible armor. One of my friends once shared how he learned to handle his own anger. Instead of lashing out in the moment, he built a small ritual. When the fire rose, he'd step outside, take a slow walk around the block, and refuse to speak until his heartbeat slowed. He told me, "By the time I return, the anger is still there, but I'm the one holding it, not the other way around." That stayed with me. It reminded me that solitude doesn't just leave you alone with your emotions. It teaches you to command them, to walk beside them without being dragged under. Once you can hold your own storms, people actually feel safer around you. Calm is contagious, and the man who owns it quietly becomes a leader without asking. The twist is, control doesn't make you colder, it makes you warmer. When you're not ruled by anger or desperation, you show up calmer, more present, more attractive even. People sense that they can't easily shake you, and that steadiness draws them closer. Do you remember when was the last time you lost control over something small? Traffic, a careless comment, a delayed plan. And what would shift in your life if instead of exploding, you learned to hold steady in the storm? Fact 4, freedom. People think freedom means doing whatever you want. That's the illusion. Real freedom is needing less than everyone else. And this is where men who live alone quietly win a battle most don't even know they're fighting. Let's be honest, relationships are expensive, not only in money but in mental energy. Dinners, gifts, trips, constant negotiations. I once joked with a friend that some men don't have girlfriends, they have part-time financial supervisors. Every decision has to be cleared, every purchase justified. Alone, you learn something shocking. Your wallet breathes easier, but so does your mind. One man I know bought himself a bike instead of paying for another luxury dinner date. He told me that ride gave him more joy and clarity than all the forced small talk he had endured that year. And I laughed because I understood him. Freedom isn't about isolation, it's about choosing where your energy and resources flow. Think of it like cleaning out a cluttered garage. Most people keep piling up boxes they don't need because someone told them it's necessary. But the man who lives alone, he starts tossing out the junk, expectations, obligations, impressing people he doesn't even like. What's left is space to think, to move, to choose. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Solitude teaches you this firsthand. Without the pressure to perform for society or maintain an image for someone else, you make sharper choices. You don't spend to look successful. You invest to become strong. You don't travel to post photos. You travel to grow. You don't keep chasing approval. You choose your own direction. People often see the solitary man as limited, yet he often has more options than anyone. Free to change careers without negotiation, free to move cities without a committee meeting, free to risk, free to reinvent. That kind of autonomy scares most, but it liberates the few who embrace it. I once told a colleague, "You know the real luxury? Not the car, not the watch, but being able to spend Saturday exactly how you want without explaining it to anyone." He laughed, then went home to argue about weekend plans. That day I realized freedom doesn't shout, it smiles quietly in the background. And another friend of mine, who had been married 3 times, once confessed with a sigh, "If I had stayed single after my first divorce, by now I'd probably be a millionaire." It was funny, but also sobering. Sometimes the cost of losing your freedom is far higher than anyone admits out loud, because every chain, no matter how shiny, still limits your step. And the man who learns to walk light, owing nothing, explaining nothing, is often the one who runs furthest. Freedom feels wonderful, doesn't it? But the secret revealed in the next part, that's the piece that will make you realize this video was worth your time. So let me ask you, if no one was watching, no one was judging, and no one had a claim on your time or money, what would you finally dare to choose? Fact 5, purpose. Most people think purpose arrives from outside. Love that completes you, a career that validates you, applause that proves you matter. But here's the thing, when those things fall silent, that's when your real purpose has a chance to speak. A man who lives alone can't keep distracting himself with constant company. He faces the harder question, what am I really here for? And that question, uncomfortable as it is, becomes the compass of his life. I remember one friend who moved into a small apartment after a breakup. No TV, no partner, no noise, just a blank wall and his thoughts. At first it crushed him, but slowly that empty space became the birthplace of a business idea he had ignored for years. Within 2 years, that idea grew into his life's work. He told me later, "If I hadn't been alone, I never would have had the silence to hear it." Think about it. When you're constantly surrounded by people, you adapt to their rhythms, their opinions, their habits. You give away pieces of yourself to fit in. But solitude strips the stage bare. No audience, no pressure, just you and your truth. And when you finally listen, you hear the call that was buried under years of noise. The Stoics hinted at this. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Purpose isn't discovered by accident. It is chosen, then built. And solitude gives you the rare space to make that choice with honesty. When you're no longer distracted by chasing approval or validation, you finally see the bigger arc of your life. You've waited, and this is the moment. Because hidden beneath the silence of solitude lies a principle so rarely spoken, yet powerful enough to change the course of a man's life. There's something I rarely hear people talk about. A research echoed in Napoleon Hill's book revealed this. Men who live alone often unlock a hidden edge. Why? Because the energy most people spend chasing relationships, drama, or physical pleasure, they redirect it into work, into art, into building something greater than themselves. Hill called it sexual transmutation, the ability to transform desire into creation. And history shows many of the most brilliant men weren't the ones drowning in romance. They were the ones who learned how to turn fire into focus. I once reflected on the life of Mahatma Gandhi. Though he was married, in midlife he chose a vow of celibacy, redirecting all his energy, his longing, his hunger, his passion, into the mission of liberating his people. Some pitied his austerity. Yet history remembers him not for what he renounced, but for what he built. A legacy of freedom and moral courage that still inspires millions today. That is exactly what Napoleon Hill meant by transforming raw desire into creation. Pause and let that sink in. What he gave up was immense, but what he built was greater. The truth is, desire will either consume you or construct you. And the man who learns to turn fire into focus, will never live an ordinary life again. So become great. Your time has come. Now or never. If this part hits you hard, hit the like button. It tells me you want more of these hidden truths. And share this video with a friend who might need to hear it today. Think about it. If you had to redirect every ounce of restless energy for the next 6 months, not into romance, not into endless scrolling, but into a single pursuit that mattered, what could you build? Fact 6, connections. Society loves to paint the solitary man as isolated, awkward, maybe even incapable of love. But the truth is, the more comfortable you are alone, the stronger your relationships become. Most people are addicted to company, not because they truly love connection, but because they fear silence. They pile up contacts, flood their weekends with noise, and mistake quantity for quality. It's like filling a fridge with cheap snacks just so it doesn't look empty, when in reality, half of it will expire before anyone touches it. But the man who thrives in solitude, he's selective. He doesn't waste his time on shallow small talk or draining obligations. He doesn't chase attention like it's oxygen, because he knows he can breathe just fine on his own. I once joined a hiking trip with a group of friends. Most of them spent the first hour bragging about careers, about relationships, about who had traveled where. But one guy who lived alone stayed quiet, just walking steadily. When we reached a tough climb, everyone turned noisy energy into complaints. He, on the other hand, gave one simple piece of advice about pacing your breath, and suddenly the whole group listened. That moment hit me. Respect doesn't come from volume, it comes from steadiness. People can feel when you don't need their approval. Seneca once advised, associate with those who are likely to improve you. A man at ease with solitude takes that seriously. His friendships are chosen, not forced. His relationships are built on depth, not desperation. And ironically, that makes him more magnetic, not less. Here's the thing, I had a buddy complain, "Man, it's hard to meet someone when you're not out every night." I laughed and told him, "No, it's hard to meet someone worth keeping when you're out every night." He didn't like it, but deep down he knew it was true. Being everywhere often means you stand for nothing. Solitude isn't the absence of relationships, it's the filter that it protects them. When you know how to stand alone, you don't need people to fill a void. You welcome them because they add value. That difference changes everything, because in the end, noise only gets you noticed. Depth makes you unforgettable. Which do you want stamped on your life? People don't remember the loudest voice in the room. They remember the one whose silence made them think. So what would your circle look like if you stopped choosing people out of fear of being alone and only chose those who sharpened you, inspired you, or helped you grow? Fact 7. The Unshakable Stoic. In today's world, there are countless single men. Most are seen as unattractive, lost, or weak. But a rare few are different. And if you've stayed until this point, you're one of them. Yes, I'm talking to you. The fact that you're still here means you're not just curious. You're a seed with the potential to grow into something this world deeply needs. There is something magnetic about a man who cannot be shaken. Not by bad news, not by gossip, not by the storms that send everyone else scrambling. Most people live like leaves in the wind, reacting to every comment, every rumor, every shift of circumstance. One setback at work ruins their week. One argument ruins their sense of self. One rejection sends them spiraling. But the man who has walked through solitude has already faced the hardest opponent, himself. That's why the noise of the world no longer breaks him. An older man next door once said, "The storm outside didn't scare me because I'd already faced storms inside." That line stayed with me because that is the essence of Stoicism. Seneca once wrote, "A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be." That doesn't mean complacency. It means he understands that circumstances will always change, but his center does not. When you learn this deeply, you can't outsource calm, you can't buy stability. You build it one quiet battle at a time until peace becomes your default state. Think of a seasoned boxer in the ring. The crowd roars, the opponent swings wildly, but he doesn't flinch. He protects his center, absorbs what he must, and waits for the storm of punches to fade. That's the solitary man in chaos. He doesn't panic. He endures until control returns to him. The strange thing is, when you become unshakable, people sense it. They may not say it out loud, but they lean on your presence. You become the calm in their storm, the steady hand they trust. That's why solitude isn't weakness. It's the training ground for power that cannot be faked. Let me ask you directly, how much of your peace do you hand over to other people's moods, other people's opinions, other people's approval? And what would shift if you reclaimed it all? The man who lives alone learns this truth. Happiness never belonged to relationships, wealth, or status. It belongs to mastery of self. And once you own that, you are free in a way no one can take from you. So carry this with you. The world doesn't need another man desperate for applause. It needs men who stand steady when everything shakes. If solitude has taught you anything, let it be this. No storm lasts forever, but the man who holds his ground will. So here's the deeper truth. Living alone is not the end of a story. It is the beginning of one. It is not punishment. It is preparation. Solitude strips away the crutches most men lean on. The constant validation, the noise of distraction, the illusion that someone else will always carry their load. It feels harsh at first, but what it leaves behind is unshakable. A man who cannot be bent by the storms of life. Confusion, after all, is the perfect state before clarity. If you've stayed with me until now, understand this. You've already separated yourself from the crowd. Most people click joy when the silence gets uncomfortable. You didn't. You stayed. And that means something powerful. You are capable of walking the path fewer men dare to take. You've proven that your spirit is not just curious, but hungry for strength, for clarity, for truth. Living alone teaches you something no applause, no romance, no paycheck can. That your value does not depend on what others give you, but on what you build when no one is watching. Every quiet morning, every lonely evening, every choice you make when no one else will notice, that is where your power is forged. And that power, once it is yours, cannot be taken away. The world tells you happiness is found in noise, in validation, in company at all costs. But the Stoics remind us that happiness belongs to the man who masters himself. When you can endure silence without fear, when you can stand firm without applause, when you can look in the mirror and know you are enough, that is freedom. That is greatness. So I leave you with this. Solitude will either break you or it will build you. And the choice is yours. Do not waste it. Do not run from it. Let it sharpen you into the man who can stand calm while the world shakes. Because history never remembers the ones who blended in. It remembers the ones who held their ground. Stand tall, stand steady. Be the proof that a man alone can become a man unshakable. Your time has come, now or never. And if this message spoke to you, subscribe now. This channel is for men who choose to rise, and by sharing it, you might spark the change in someone else's life.